This is going to be a simple prong setting. What we're going to do is just take two pieces of 1.2 mil wire with a slight curve, put them back to back, and they just need to be about 14-15 mil longer than the stone on either side. Then we'll take those two pieces, we'll solder them back to back. A third piece we'll solder right in the middle, and then we'll loop that into a bail afterwards. So you can see that I've put the two bits of metal so that the curves are just touching each other on the inside. So just a spot of flux at that point, a couple of bits of hard solder, always place the solder with your flux brush because that way the solder will have flux on it. If it doesn't have flux on it, most of the time the solder won't flow. So same old flame that we normally use, about 150 mil with the gas. Oxy just until the feather goes away at the end. Gently heat the metal up, and as usual both pieces of metal have to be the same temperature, otherwise the solder will jump to the hottest one. So when the flux gets all dry, you can push your solder where it needs to go if it's jumped out of place. So there, the solder's flowed very nicely. Now I'm not going to do anything with this except place my bail in the middle and solder it. So I've filed a little bit of a taper on the end so that it'll just snug right up in there. Flux, a piece of solder on each side where it touches the other two wires. And we can place the solder using the brush on hot metal because it's sable, natural hair. So we heat this up. When the solder flows, we'll pickle it. Very nice, if I do say so myself. Quench it and pickle it. Always put stuff in the pickle using copper tongs. If you don't use copper, if you use steel, it'll copper plate the metal when you go to put it in because of the chemical reaction. If you have a stone that has an irregularly shaped back, or if you want something that looks a little bit nicer, what you can do is make your bits so it has an opening in the back, and I'm just pushing this around a ring mandrel, and then I'll use my parallel jaw pliers to bend it back out. Because what I want is basically the same thing, only I want an opening on the inside so that the stone can stick through the back. If it's a flat back stone, it works just as well. It makes it a little bit nicer. And when you go to solder it now, you'll solder it these 2 points. Once you've pickled the metal so that you can see whether you have a decent solder joint or not, if you have a decent solder joint, continue. If you don't, go back, solder it again. Now you can just use your fingers if you want to push the legs of this setting out. Because it's been soldered, it'll be soft, it'll be annealed. Place your stone on it, and when you get it so that you like the way it looks, take a texture, mark where the edge of the stone touches the prongs. Use your parallel jaw pliers to grab the metal at that point. Push the metal against your bench peg or your bench plate and just bend it up. So this way you'll have a nice crisp bend. All four. If you don't push the metal against something as you're bending it, you'll have a round bend rather than a square. So this is fairly square. We put the stone back in, test it. Now, because these are so close, it would actually let the stone slip side to side. So what I'll do is bend these out more so that they come past the apex, which is right in the middle of the bend. So we want the bottom to have a place to go down into without being able to slip out. So when you get the prongs where they should be, a little wider on these and these. Yep. So you'd be able to tell because I can actually turn it and it won't fall out. So at this point, I like that. So now we're going to take our side cutters, and this is one of the few times that you can use side cutters for this. So what you're going to do is put the tip of the cutters on top of the stone and make sure that this bottom part is level. If you cut it down here, you won't have any prong left to push over. So make sure that's level like that. Hold your thumb over the top so you don't shoot yourself in the face or your neighbor. Clip all four of them off. Now, take the stone out and a number 2 cut flat hand file. Lean just the prong over your bench peg and file about half the material away. This is to make it prettier and actually to make it easier to push over the stone. So you can see, yeah, it's fairly flat here. So do all four. And if you just hook that over the edge of your bench peg, it's quite easy. When you get all four done, take your sanding stick, magic sanding stick, and just tidy up the ends of the prongs so that they're not sharp. Because they would, at this point, they would have been a little bit sharp because of cutting it off with the side cutters. So, last one. Now, set your stone back in. Yeah. Nice snug fit. So at this point we're just going to use our bezel rocker to push those prongs over the stone. Yeah. This will be the simplest setting you ever make. Four prongs. Now we have to decide what kind of a bail we want. Normally, I would just take my flat round pliers, hold the round part to the back of the stone, and I just rest my pliers right on top of the stone, push the wire right over, then round bit on the outside, bend that up, back to the inside, bend it down. Now, where the wire sticks up, I'd cut it off just past the bend, sand that tip smooth, and you can polish it, and you're done. Normally, I would hallmark this right here. So line up your hallmark so that the numbers read up and down one smack. You're done. Jewelry.